Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to take a look under the hood of India's massive economic engine. We're going to figure out who's really in the driver's seat, how they're steering this thing, and most importantly, what it all means for your money.
You know, from the interest rate you pay on your loans to how safe your investments are, there's this huge, complex system working behind the scenes. Well, in this explainer, we're pulling back the curtain to show you exactly how it all works.
All right, first up, let's talk about the institution that basically controls the entire economic temperature, and that's the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI.
So, think of the RBI like the economy's master thermostat. They're always making these tiny adjustments to the flow of money and credit to keep things, well, just right. Not too hot and not too cold.
Okay, so what's their main job? It's all about price stability. Basically, the RBI has one big target. Keep inflation, that's the rate prices go up, at around 4%. That's kind of the sweet spot, right? It encourages growth, but it doesn't let your cost of living get out of control. And that little buffer they have, between 2% and 6%, just gives them some wiggle room.
All right, so how do they actually do that? Well, their number one tool is something called the repo rate. This is super important. It's the interest rate the RBI charges commercial banks when they borrow money. And even a tiny little tweak to this rate, it sets off a massive chain reaction across the entire economy.
And here's how that ripple effect actually plays out. So, step one, the RBI raises the repo rate. That means it suddenly gets more expensive for your bank to borrow money. And what do? They pass that cost right on to you, so your home loan, your car loan, they get more expensive. Naturally, people and businesses borrow less, which means they spend less. And when spending cools down, so does inflation. It's pretty amazing, right? One decision made in Mumbai can directly affect how much money you have in your pocket to spend.
Okay, so that's the big picture of the economy. Now let's switch gears and head over to the stock market. And if the RBI is the thermostat, then you can think of SEBI, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, as the market's referee, a very strict one. They're the ones constantly updating the rulebook to make sure it's a fair game for everybody involved.
So, SEBI's mission is pretty clear. Protect investors, keep trading fair, and make the markets run smoothly. And lately, they've been making some major updates, really focusing on protecting the smaller, everyday investors. A whole wave of new people have jumped into the market recently, and the regulator basically wants to make sure they're not getting into super risky situations with unproven companies.
So, what's the big change? Well, they've made it a lot tougher for these smaller companies to go public. For one, they actually have to be profitable now. And get this, they've also doubled the minimum investment you have to make. The idea is to make sure that the people investing in these IPOs are a bit more experienced and know the risks.
And this isn't just some abstract rule change. Let's take a look at a hypothetical company. We'll call it Tech Alpha. Under these new rules, if Tech Alpha is losing money, forget it. It can't even list on the exchange. And it can't use the money it raises from the public to pay back loans to its own founders or CEO. It's all about protecting investors from these potentially shaky ventures.
But that's not all SEBI's been up to. What's really fascinating is how they're also making the market way faster and safer. I'm talking about trade settlements. Think about it. Not too long ago, you had to wait 5 whole days for your shares to show up in your account. Then, they got it down to 1 day, which was a huge deal. And now, they're already testing out same-day settlement. The ultimate goal here is to make it literally instantaneous. You click buy, and it's yours. Pretty cool.
Okay, so we have a skilled thermostat in the RBI and a strict referee in SEBI. The big question is, how is the engine actually performing? Let's check out India's national report card.
First up, the big one, GDP. The latest figures show the economy grew at a blistering 8.2%. That's a huge number. And that performance keeps India firmly in the top spot as the fastest-growing major economy on the planet. No small feat.
Next up, the government is also getting its own house in order. They're tightening their belt. They're on track to shrink the fiscal deficit. That's basically the gap between what the government spends and what it earns, down to 4.4% of GDP. And why does that matter? Well, a lower deficit is a really good sign of economic health. It shows the government is being responsible with its finances.
And to protect against any surprise global shocks or financial storms, India has built this massive safety net. We're talking over $640 billion in foreign exchange reserves. That is one heck of a cushion.
But, when you zoom out and compare India to the rest of the world, a more complex picture emerges. It's really a story of contrasts. So on one hand, you have this global innovation powerhouse, ranking an impressive 38th.
But on the other hand, there are still some really big challenges, especially in areas like human development and gender equality, where the rankings, well, they're a lot lower. So that's the big puzzle, right? How do you keep fueling this multi-trillion-dollar economy while also lifting up those social rankings? Well, a huge part of the strategy has been to bring more and more people into the formal financial system, literally from the ground up.
The mission is simple and powerful: funding the unfunded. And the idea behind it is pretty straightforward. If you can give basic banking services and access to credit to millions of people who were totally outside the system before, you unlock this incredible economic potential right from the grassroots level.
And look no further than the flagship John Donne scheme to see just how massive the impact has been. We're talking over 560 million new bank accounts opened, most of them with zero balance required. And here's what's really crucial: over half of them, 56%, are held by women, and 2/3 of them are in rural and semi-urban areas. That is financial inclusion on a scale we've rarely seen.
Okay, so finally, you can have the best engine in the world, but you still need a steady hand at the wheel to steer it. And as we look to the future, there's been a major changing of the guard at the very top of these critical institutions. So, in 2025, both the RBI and SEBI got new leaders. Shri Sanjay Malhotra is now the new governor of the RBI. He's the one in charge of that economic thermostat we talked about. And over at SEBI, Shri Tuhin Kanta Pandey has taken over as the new chairperson. He's the market's new head referee. And now, it's up to both of them to steer India's economy through what's going to be a really critical next phase of growth.
And all of this brings us to one final and pretty crucial question. You've got strong growth, you've got new rules designed to protect people, and you have brand new leadership at the top. So what happens next? Is India's economic engine really poised for its next big leap? Well, that remains the multi-trillion-dollar question, doesn't it?